Here's Brody Brazil.
Here in 2025, there is most certainly a small handful of Major League Baseball teams which could definitely be considered a straight-up dumpster fire. And I'm not going to name them individually here by name, but you can probably guess which organizations I'm talking about. But also, most of those dumpster fire franchises, their problems, their issues, their antics, their situations, their circumstances, it's all stuff off the field. It's not necessarily their players, their team, their actual results on the baseball diamond. But if we're talking about the Colorado Rockies here in 2025, they might be the biggest dumpster fire actually on the field. Their performance, their results so far, I mean, we are about a quarter of the way into this 2025 season. They are still sitting on 6 wins. And I'm sorry I'm distracted. I'm just realizing once again, my outfit matching the theme and topic of this video. Entirely unintentional, I promise you that. Let's take a look at the last couple seasons of Major League Baseball and who that absolute worst team has been. In 2022, it was the Washington Nationals, a negative 252 run differential, 55 wins, a 340 win percentage. In 2023, the Oakland Athletics, 50 wins, 112 losses. I covered that season firsthand. It was bad. A 309 win percentage, a negative 339 run differential. But last year, the Chicago White Sox took the cake, setting a modern age record, a modern day record for losses in a season. They went 41 and 121. Only a 306, negative 306 run differential, but a 253 win percentage. That brings us to the 2025 Colorado Rockies. Now, these are the stats and information I'm bringing you that were current as of Friday morning and afternoon. I realize by the time you're watching this, they're now at least 6-32 or worse, but 6-31 as I prepared this video, a 162 win percentage already in this season, like a quarter of the way through, a negative 109 run differential. And you can kind of see here from top to bottom, things are getting worse, right? Some of the best teams are winning more games than ever. Their payrolls are through the roof, but the worst teams in Major League Baseball are actually getting worse year after year. I mean, the Nats win percentage was better than the A's win percentage, was better than the White Sox win percentage, which was way better than the Rockies win percentage so far here in 2025. That gap, that competitive imbalance, not balance, that competitive imbalance is growing greater and stronger across Major League Baseball. So if you extrapolate the numbers, what's this Rockies season going to turn out to be? 26 and 136 on pace right now. That's how their season would end if basically nothing changed. Only 26 total wins after 162 games. That would put them at precisely that 162 win percentage. Yikes. Their run differential at this pace right now could be a negative 457. They could score 457 fewer runs than opponents score on them this season. And again, we are not just 8 games in, 2 weeks in. We're at about the quarter point of this season. We're about 23% of the way into this 2025 season. This is still a small sample size, and there is still some room to get better, to change the course of this season. I really think the only thing they can do this year is avoid being infamous, right? At some point here, they're going to have to make a run just to avoid being on the wrong side of history. They'll never be a good team this year. They'll never even be a respectable team this year. At this point, they're just trying to avoid infamy as best they can. We'll talk more about that later in a second. Let's get some facts from Major League Baseball. Colorado has matched the 1988 Baltimore Orioles for the worst 37-game start by a club in the modern era. And that Orioles team finished with 107 losses. So, again, there is time to pick it up, to write yourself out of the history books. But at this point, with the Rockies, it doesn't appear like anything is bound to change soon. Since the start of the 2023 season, the Rockies are 112 and 250. They are 14 and a half games worse than any other club in Major League Baseball, including the Chicago White Sox, who had 121 losses last year. The Rockies, over that time span since the start of 23, are still worse than the White Sox overall. The Rockies, by the way, currently this weekend are playing a series against the San Diego Padres, but their last series, they got swept by the Tigers. They also got outscored 21-3 in a Thursday finale, a Thursday doubleheader against Detroit. 21-3 in 2 games. The Rockies, yes, are facing the Padres this weekend, who had already seen Colorado this year and swept them in mid-April. 8-0, 2-0, and 6-0. And spoiler alert, the Rockies did not get shut out for a 4th game in a row head-to-head against the Padres because that has only happened one time before. Only one time has a Major League Baseball team shut out another team in 4 straight head-to-head meetings. That was the Marlins over, who is MTL for you young kids? The Montreal Expos. In 2004, right before they moved, the Marlins shut out the Expos 4 straight times. But going back to that series where the Rockies got swept by the Padres, they had just 9 hits in 88 at-bats in that series. That's a 102 batting average. They also struck out 32 times. You think about the 88 at-bats, right? And how many hits there were. So how many at-bats did not produce a hit, produced an out? 32 of those, like basically half, almost half, close to half, were strikeouts. Didn't even put the ball in play. And I understand. You can look at the Rockies and say, well, they play in a tough division, so a bad team's going to look even worse. I think that's true to some extent, but the Rockies are not just losing divisional games. They're losing to everybody far and wide. But I also look at their situation and say, maybe they, on purpose, are not trying for these years because they look at the division and think, what a monster this is. You've already got the Dodgers spending and deferring and going out of their mind with an all-star roster that's a regular season, likely postseason World Series team. The Dodgers this year already sporting a .658 win percentage, their payroll $332 million. Padres, can't sleep on them either. They've had a good start. .639 win percentage, a $209 million opening day payroll. By the way, these are the opening day total payrolls, not just the 26-man roster, opening day payrolls for the franchise this season. The Giants, even coming in at a little bit of a frugal, couldn't say that word, frugal $170.7 million. They are overachieving. Now my voice is cracking. They are overachieving this year at a .632 win percentage. And the Diamondbacks, you can't count them out. They were in the World Series a couple years ago, a .526 win percentage, $182.4 million payroll, and that leaves the last place team, the Rockies, a .162 win percentage, a payroll right now of $125.5 million. And I'm not saying that paying high dollar amounts assures you of anything, winning or anything like that, but you have to have a pipeline. You have to have the players you want to reward, and then you pay them, and then your franchise does well. There's an indication here, and there is some criticism here, that people would say the Rockies aren't even trying. What did they do this past offseason in terms of free agent moves? Yeah, not much. And that's kind of the point here. It makes you wonder if they look at the division the same way I look at this division and feel like they have no chance, but does that mean they just stop trying? And if you're wondering how are they losing all these games, they're just bad all around. Their team batting average, .211. Only 29 home runs. And I say only, they're 26th in Major League Baseball. They play at Coors Field. They play at altitude, for goodness sake. Now, I realize the new trend is, hey, play in a minor league ballpark for your home games. You'll also hit a bunch of home runs there. But in terms of Major League Baseball ballparks, they have one of the best hitters' parks you could ask for at altitude, only 29 dingers, 26th in Major League Baseball. Team on-base percentage, not good, second to last. Again, they're last in average. They're last in team fielding percentage. They make a lot of errors, a .977 fielding percentage, and their ERA, which has always been high, again, in part to Coors Field, but 28th in baseball at .547 for the team's earned run average. The Rockies have not been good in a while. There's no question about that. They were in the playoffs. That's what those asterisks mean right there in 2017 and 18. Playoffs, those 2 years, kind of quick entries and exits. But they started to spend a little bit more, $143 million. In 2019, probably thought they could get back. They bumped it up to $155. They were the 6th overall spending team in 2018. They were the 9th overall spending team in 2019. And again, this is Denver, bigger market. You would think the Rockies would have probably a top 10, maybe even a top 15 payroll always in Major League Baseball, right? Just depending on free agency, how their team's doing, what their ambitions are, but probably somewhere in the top 15, maybe more likely in the top 10. Well, in 2020, right, weird year, so I'll count that one out. They dipped to 25th overall in payroll. 2021, though, 16th, 19th, 18th, and 17th. So they're out of that top 15 range, but here's the kicker. Their opening day payroll from 2017 to last year hasn't even really changed. I mean, I know you can see it on your screen here. It's gone up $6 to $7 million, but consider inflation over all that time and what every other team's salary and payroll has done over that same time span. I mean, the Rockies are not spending much more now than they were in 2017 when they were trying to make pushes in the playoffs. So they're kind of back where they started. And again, spending doesn't always equal winning, but if you want to sustain winning, you eventually have to spend for that. That's kind of my rule in terms of spending and winning. Wait a second. Dick Monfort, Rockies owner, and I wearing the same polo? Can't be. It's basically the same color. And Dick has been pretty vocal about the need for a salary cap and a salary floor in Major League Baseball. And again, to that criticism of maybe the Rockies aren't trying, maybe the Rockies look at the Dodgers and say, we're fed up with this. We'll never be able to spend like they are. We can't compete as the way they're doing. And so we're just kind of out of this keeping up with the Dodgers conversation. This is what Dick told the Denver Gazette. I think this was back in spring training. Something's got to happen. The competitive imbalance, I used that term earlier, in baseball has gotten to the point of ludicrosity? Ludicrous? Is that a word? I don't know. I'll have to check that one out. Has gotten to the point of ludicrosity now. It's an unregulated industry. Well, it kind of is. I mean, there is a threshold. There is a salary tax threshold, not a cap, but a tax threshold. You have to pay the competitive balance tax to the teams that don't spend as much, but there's no salary floor that they have to get up to. So I to a certain extent, I agree. It is an unregulated industry, but you got to still try, right? You can't seemingly not try to put together a good team, be competitive, care, and we'll get to that thought in just a second. Tension building inside the franchise. April 17th, they fired their hitting coach, Hensley Bam Bam Mullins, and they bring in Clint Hurdle. They're also a franchise which is ranked 18th overall in terms of Major League Baseball prospects. So the Rockies pipeline, right? If you're thinking, all right, just wait a couple years, they're finishing low, they're getting high draft picks, they will work this thing out. They're not so great in terms of prospect pipeline rankings. Like the future is not necessarily bright right around the corner for these Colorado Rockies. Also, they play at Coors Field, one of the best ballparks in all of the country, in all of North America. And it's kind of a shame that fans are still showing up for an experience there. And the ballpark is great and the ambiance is great, always has been. But the team has kind of been garbage and hasn't been actually trying to change that or do anything about that for years. And it's a very hitter-friendly park. This is a team that's not scoring runs, low batting average, all the above, not hitting a lot of home runs. How do you do that when your home field is once again Coors Field up at altitude? Kyle Freeland had a quote the other day after a game. Actually, Kyle had a couple of really good quotes the other night after a game. And look, the reason I call him out and point him out, he is a Denver native. If there's anybody who should understand the connection between the Rockies and their fans and expectations and really doing this for the pride factor, yeah, you'd think it would be Kyle Freeland. So he gets it. Here's what he said on other Major League Baseball teams which have turned it around. They were struggling and then they improved. Teams like the Kansas City Royals, they lost 100-plus games. Only a couple seasons ago, they flirted with the playoffs last year, signed Bobby Witt to a big contract. And the Detroit Tigers, that's another team, struggling mightily, but they figured it out. They leveraged their draft picks and their pipeline. They turned it around. Here's what Kyle said about the Rockies. What they're doing, those teams who turned it around, is right. What we're doing is wrong. We're not winning baseball games. It's as clear as day. We're playing a bad brand of baseball all around. Pitching, fielding, hitting. It's bad. And then Kyle was asked, hey, since you're from here, you get this, what would be your message to Rockies fans here in 2025? Keep believing in us. he said while fighting back tears. Keep riding. And by the way, you should have seen his body language as he was giving that quote, as he was finishing off the interview, because basically those were his last words during this press conference, and then he just walked away. He didn't have the press conference ended. He ended it with those words because it was like, I don't have the answers. I have nothing more to say. I am beyond frustrated by this situation. I'm not saying the team is giving up, but I'm just saying they can see the writing on the wall. So again, some teams rally to try and make the playoffs. They have a second half push. They put it together in the warmer months of the season. The Colorado Rockies here of 2025, they have to put it together so they don't end up as the new White Sox. And what are we witnessing here? Would it be interesting to have two different teams, two different cities and franchises on back-to-back years set a new modern era record for losses in a season? What would that mean? Like, we should look at baseball and say all these years and we never had this many 100-plus loss teams, let alone 121 last year and maybe even more than that in terms of losses this year. Something is going on with that competitive imbalance of baseball. But again, the Rockies, I think they're capable of a late season rally, a mid-season rally, but it's going to have to be a good one to keep them away from, again, setting that new loss record. Getting better and winning doesn't happen automatically. I think that so much needs to be pointed out here because a lot of fans assume, all right, we've been bad. We're going to have high draft picks. We're going to, get rid of the expensive players, start from scratch, kind of, clean slate, rebuild. It doesn't automatically just happen for you like that. You have to be smart with money. You still have to make smart decisions. You have to scout and draft the right players. You have to sign the right free agents. You have to make all the right moves. It doesn't just work like a roller coaster where when you come down, you come automatically right back up and before you go down. It doesn't work that way. You have to create your own journey. You have to assure your team of the right people to get the right chances and be put in winning situations. And the last thing here is, for Rockies fans to be disappointed, it's one thing to look at your team and say, well, they're trying and they're just not there yet, or they keep making decisions that don't turn out well, but you can see the math, right? You can see the writing on the wall. If you can show your fans the math that you're trying, generally speaking, and I do think this is the case with Rockies fans, if you can just say, hey, look, here's what we've been trying. And we promise you we're trying. Here's the math to prove it. Here's the players we brought in. Here's the draft picks. Here's the selections, all that stuff. They'd say, all right, well, it's just not working out. We're still frustrated, but we understand. In Denver right now, I don't think anybody is seeing the math in the right light. The math isn't mathing right now for Rockies fans, and that's why they are especially frustrated. So, historically bad? Yes. So far here in 2025, 6 and I think 32 by the time I'm recording this. I do think they lost tonight to the Padres in a very high-scoring shootout back and forth. But the point is, if this continues, you are about to see another brand new, worst modern Major League Baseball team ever in a single season here for 2025. That's the end of this video. Thanks for sticking around. Thumbs up down below because you made it to the end. That'll help me, this video, this channel. Put some comments down there too. Let me know what you think about the Rockies or any other team that's a true dumpster fire this season. And one more request, if you would, hit that subscribe button down below. That way I can definitely see you back here next time.